Hey y'all, welcome back or welcome for the very first time. Either way, you're right on time because I have been in these movie theater streets. Oh my God. Okay, so over the last couple of weeks, I've seen Cronin's The Mummy, Hokum, and Mortal Kombat. And my feelings are all over the place, like a demon-possessed child in a crawl space, which will make sense in just a few minutes. There will be spoilers, there will be takes, and there will be a trigger warning for content involving self-harm. I'll flag that when we get there. You've been warned, let's go. So real quick, before we get into it, here's where I'm landing. The Mummy, loved it. It was an original story. It kept me guessing, and it's a proud addition to Sam Raimi's Evil Dead universe. Hokum left me feeling a little ho-hum. Yes, it had an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, but personally, I'm going a little bit lower. I'm saying 69, not for the joke. We'll get there. Mortal Kombat II, a blast. The comedy had a rough start for me, but it clicked and it worked. And who would have thought that Baraka would have stolen all of his scenes? Okay, so you ready for some details? We're gonna talk about the movie. I'm gonna give you the plot as I see it and my overall thoughts. So here we go. Cronin's The Mummy is written and directed by Cronin. The main cast consists of Jack Rayner, Leah Costa, May Calamui, Veronica Falcone, Natalie Grace, and Hayat Camille. I want to start by saying I was not expecting to really love this film. It's my first post-CinemaCon film, and I figured it would be a great return to the cinematic experience with, some good jump scares, and it delivered much more. So this film had jump scares, takes, a disturbing villain, and an abuela who deserved better. Here's the plot as I understood it. If I get something wrong, drop it in the comments. You'll be doing me a favor. We open in Aswan, Egypt. There's a family, mother, I think 2 sons, the dad, and a daughter. They're living on top of a pyramid. Their whole job for generations, apparently, is to guard a vessel that holds an ancient demon called the Nazarenian. Now, the vessel is a human being. Any living human will do, but an innocent child lasts longer. Terrifying, but I guess efficient if you're in the business of guarding demon vessels. So cut to the Cannon family. Charlie, investigative journalist, Larissa, nurse, mom and dad. Their daughter, Katie, about 8 years old, and their son, Sebastian, who is slightly older. They should have been twins. I don't know why they weren't twins. It doesn't really do anything for the story, but it just makes sense. Like, I know people have kids that are like maybe a year apart or a few months apart or whatever, but like, I don't know why it would have made sense to me for them to be kids. But no one asked me. I had nothing to do with the making of this movie. So Charlie's in Egypt reporting on some shady government flood zone situation. It's important work, but here is my question, and I need you to feel this with me when I say it. Why is your whole family there? You brought your children to a government corruption story in a foreign country in a sandstorm zone. I have questions, Charlie. Anyway, there's a chaotic foot chase through a sandstorm. Katie is abducted by a woman we'll call the magician, and surprise, it's the mom from the opening. And Katie is now the new vessel for the Nazarenian. So I guess the magician is doing her job. Terrible, horrible, not the innocent little girl, but she got demons to guard. So the story jumps ahead 8 years. The Cannons have moved to Albuquerque to live with Larissa's very Catholic mother, Carmen Santiago. They've had another child named Maud, who is probably about the same age Katie was when she was abducted. In this house, there are enough rooms for everyone. We see like a pan and everyone's name is on the door. And I'm like, there's enough room for everyone, which again raises the question of what were you all doing in Europe? Like, Marissa could have been like a travel nurse and she could be there working. Okay, cool. And then he was there working, but the kids could have at least stayed with their grandmother. Like, y'all are a nurse and investigative journalist. Why do you have your 2 children there and no like actual help? I digress. I won't bring that up again. But here's the thing. Katie's old room, completely untouched. 8 years, every toy, every book, just sitting there. Then one day, a cargo plane crashes back in Egypt. It had a sarcophagus. And inside of that sarcophagus, archaeologists find Katie. She's alive, pale, and wrapped in ancient parchment, and her hands are all like twisted and overgrown fingernails, and it's very creepy, very creepy. But they contact the Cannons bring her home, and shit gets real from there. The Nazarenian is slowly activated once Katie gets home, and later we realize it's because as they start peeling off the wrappings are like very intricate spells that kept the demon contained. So at some point, like Katie headbutts her grandmother while she's praying over. Like Carmen's like got that rosary, she's going at it, and you could tell the Nazarenian was not into it at all. And then she just headbutts her, breaks her nose. Then Katie escapes into the crawl space. She's just like scurrying around, chasing, and her dad's running behind her. It's just so crazy. And then he finds her eating a rat. So just pausing this visual, like a man crawling through the walls of his mother-in-law's house, following the sounds and pattering feet to figure out, and then he hears this crunching. He comes around the corner and finds his daughter biting into a rat. Cinema. Okay, so meanwhile, back in Egypt, you have Detective Dalia Zaki, who was working the case when Katie originally disappeared. She's on the case. She tracks down the magician, handles that situation, then finds the magician's daughter, Layla, who gives her all the lore she needs and a VHS tape that shows the ritual that bound Katie to the demon. And then she books it back to Albuquerque, and she needs to get there fast because Demon Katie is not taking it easy on the family. She telekinetically strangles the grandmother with her own crucifix and goes, "It's okay, Grandma. It's fun being dead." And then throws her out the window and summons wolves to finish the job. Wolves! She also makes Sebastian start like banging his head on the wooden bedpost in his room, and she drives little Maud completely off the rails. Maud was causing scenes at Carmen's funeral. The demon was working them folks. The demon was on it. But the story comes to a head, and then everything starts to unravel. Let me joke. Dahlia arrives, shows Charlie and Larissa the ritual tape. Now everyone's on the same page about what they're dealing with. In the final act, Charlie sacrifices himself so the Nazarenian is transferred into him. I didn't see it coming until I saw it coming, and then I was like, he's gonna have the demon put in him. Oh no. But they get a happy ending. The magician is alive in prison back in Egypt. The Cannons and Dahlia show up, and they take the demon out of Charlie and put it into her. Problem solved. Probably. So I do have a few follow-up questions. Are they now the new vessel watcher demon guard? Is Dahlia going to do like vigilante justice back in Egypt and curse criminals as a containment strategy? And then that makes me go, okay, if an innocent child lasts 8 years, how often will they need to replace a vessel if it is a criminal? I guess there's more story to tell. So my favorite character in this film was the abuela Carmen Santiago, played by Veronica Falcone. I always love like senior Black and brown characters. They steal scenes, and honestly, they're just one of the most underrated joys of television and film. You have the grandmother from Blue Beetle, Mr. Johnson in Abbott Elementary, the grandmother Alba Villanueva in Jane the Virgin, Jenny Huang in Fresh Off the Boat, the grandmother on that show, Estelle, Mother Winslow in Family Matters. Like, Carmen just falls into that same tradition. She was a true scene stealer. She provided realistic comic relief like we know our grandmothers are. I remember one time my cousin came in smelling like Black and Mild, so my grandmother goes, she looks at him, she goes, I know what those Black and Milds are for. Anyway, back to the story. Carmen was not only funny, she was part of some really good jump scare moments. And she came back as a revenant, which is funny because it's not the last time I'll use this word in this movie review. She comes back as a revenant and told Charlie he should have a taste while she's like standing over him. She was doing everything. Rest her fictional soul. My overall thoughts in this movie. So there are no cursed pharaohs, no sorcerers, kinda. This is an original mythology in Sam Raimi's Evil Dead universe. And if you know those movies, the deaths and gore, they have a specific look to them. Speaking of which, I need to catch up on those Evil Dead movies like immediately. I want to say there's one coming out this summer. This was a great first post-CinemaCon film. I highly recommend it. It should be out on digital soon because it took me forever to do this video. Watch it. Let me know what you think. So Hokum was written and directed by Damien McCarthy, and it stars Adam Scott, David Wilmot, Florence Ordish, and Peter Coonan. Okay, I have to be honest about this one. I was a little late. I went to the wrong theater. I should have communicated better. But as I walked in, Adam Scott was already at the end. But don't worry, my friend caught me up on what I missed. Apparently, it's this Gentleman Broncos style cutaway of the characters from Adam Scott's character's novel that he was struggling to finish.
Oh my holy crap. Surveillance does. I hate those.
So this movie has an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. And personally, like I said earlier, I felt it was a little bit lower. And I really wanted to love it, which honestly makes that disappointment a little worse. Let's get into the story as I remember it. So again, if I get something wrong or if I miss something, please in the comments. Reclusive novelist Ohm Bowman, played by Adam Scott, travels to a remote Irish inn to scatter his parents' ashes. While he's there, he's being kind of a dick to everyone. The staff starts telling him about an ancient, a story of a witch being trapped in the honeymoon suite, like sealed off by the owner, okay? The one person Ohm does connect with is Fiona, who's a warm front desk worker who gives him some helpful witch lore exposition. Specifically, a circle of chalk will protect you. File that away. Trigger warning, this is the self-harm content part. Okay, so Fiona goes to the room to check on Ohm and finds him hanging. She cut him down, he survives. And after he gets out of the hospital is when the story picks up. Now, we don't know how much time has passed, but he gets to the hospital, he goes back to the inn to thank Fiona. Turns out Fiona's missing. There is a local eccentric we meet a little bit earlier in the movie who has been blamed for that disappearance. Ohm, who briefly met him earlier in the film when we did, somehow finds this guy in the next scene. The town is eccentric. I believe his name is Jerry. I have it later in the script. I did not write it this early because I'm the worst. Anyways, so Jerry convinces Ohm that he needs to get into the sealed honeymoon suite. So while Jerry was poking around, trying to figure out what happened, Fiona's ghost appears and points up to the service bell ringing for that room. So Adam Scott decides to go in. Inside the suite, there's a dumbwaiter, and that's where they find, because he's also with the inn manager, that's where they find Fiona. Turns out she was having an affair with that inn manager that got pregnant, and the manager was a married coward that is absolutely the worst, locked her in the dumbwaiter and left her there to die. I think the witch got her first, but not for the reasons we think. We don't know how long Ohm was in the hospital, so it was either she starved or witch. And I don't know which is worse, but I'm leaning towards witch, which we'll talk about later. Ohm gets cornered by the witch at some point in time, remembers the circle chalk trick. Thank you, Fiona, for that great exposition, and survives. The manager tries to get Ohm. The witch gets the manager first and drags him off in chains to what I can only describe as maybe like a torture dimension. Think Cenobites. Honestly, it was justice because, yeah. In the chaos, we get Ohm's backstory. So there's this like flashback scene of a little kid of him playing with his dad's gun, and it goes off as his mother is coming home. She dies. He's been carrying that guilt ever since. I think that his writing was how he processed it just until he couldn't, so he's been stuck on this story. By the end of the film, he's found forgiveness, and he finally was able to finish that novel. The movie closes the way it opened with the characters of his new book, but with an ending that mirrored his story, finding forgiveness. So here's what I actually appreciated. It's something that I keep coming back to. I think thematically the movie is smart because it uses the Buffy approach to horror. It uses literal supernatural monsters to dramatize your internal struggles. So Ohm had to face his ghost literally before he could stop being haunted by his past. And the idea that writing was both his coping mechanism and kind of his prison until he worked through the real trauma, I think that was good storytelling, but they didn't really even lean on that enough. I think we got a few lines at the top of the movie that he was working on another novel. We just didn't get enough of it. What didn't land to me was the witch, like the actual supernatural horror part of the movie. I needed more witch. I think all the jump scares from the trailers were actually much longer scenes that they cut and cropped in to make it look like there was instantly a face instead of it just being like far away and in a lingering scene. And the reason I don't think that the witch got Fiona is because, now hear me out, I think the witch only went after men who wronged women, a la Anyanka, more Buffy. She went after Ohm, who we found out accidentally unalived his mom. She snatched up the innkeeper in a very Hellraiser-esque kind of way because, you know, adultery and murder. I think she freed Fiona before she starved. Was Fiona the one that got him in the end? I think Fiona actually got the innkeeper. That's my new headcanon anyway. I just feel like this movie couldn't decide if it was a supernatural horror or a psychological thriller. It's like it kept one foot in each world without giving enough of either. And unfortunately, Fiona and Jerry, did I say Jerry earlier or Larry? I think I called him Jerry earlier. Anyway, those two were very likable characters who, you know, honestly, were just plot devices to serve a little bit of exposition. But I mean, you know, that's what we use characters for. I wanted to like this movie more than I did, but let me know what you think, because if I missed something or if I misunderstood something, maybe I'll rewatch it when it is out on digital. We'll see. Okay, so Mortal Kombat 2 was directed by Simon McQuad, I should have looked that up earlier, and written by Jeremy Slater. The main cast consists of Carl Urban, Adeline Rudolph, Tati Gabrielle, Ludi Lin, Makai Brooks, Jessica McNamee, and so many more people. This cast was stacked. There were so many characters from the game. All the nostalgia pleasure centers were just tingling. So, I actually saw this film before Hokum, but I couldn't end on that review. I think you needed a reset before I let you go. So let's talk about Mortal Kombat. Great action, great game callbacks, and twist, it was largely Kitana's movie. I was not expecting it, and I was very much here for it. I think most of the marketing we saw was very Johnny Cage-centric. And he did get a decent amount of plot, but this was largely Kitana's story. And my one complaint was that Johnny Cage's humor didn't blend with the main cast at the start. In his solo scenes, it was really good, hilarious even. As far as Carl Urban goes, if someone says, "Who is your Johnny Cage?" He's maybe not the first person to come to mind, but I think he did a really good job in the role. If my script wrote better than serviceable, and I'm like, that's kind of shady. I think he did a good job. He would just not be my first choice for a Johnny Cage, especially like while watching The Boys. So I was like, I don't know. Anyway, but you drop his Johnny Cage into the serious energy of the core MK team, and it just didn't work until it did. Not until the Baraka fight. Something clicked in that scene, the rest of the team almost like loosened up and the tone balanced out. And from that point on, the movie was great. Also, Kano was exactly as funny as it was in the first film, unhinged and absolutely magnificent. A solid cackle. And one more thing that made me laugh throughout this movie was Shang Tsung and Sindel's hair bun. I feel like it got higher in every scene they were in, and it was honestly the best part of the handful of scenes they were in. Just crazy. So here's the story as I understood it, and please forgive me for anything that I mispronounce. We open with a flashback. Shao Kahn invades Dinia, defeats King Jared in the realm's final Mortal Kombat, kills, then revives Queen Sindel and bound her to his will. Then he adopts Princess Kitana, the classic villain shit. In the present, with the 10th Mortal Kombat tournament approaching, Demon sorcerer Quan Chi resurrects Kung Lao and Kano to fight for Outworld. Fun wrinkle, Kano couldn't be corrupted because it was already completely vile. So he just becomes the comedic relief of the villain team, and honestly, no notes. None. Team Earthrealm, Sonya Blade, Liu Kang, Jack Spriggs, and Cole Young go to recruit Johnny Cage. Johnny is not interested, but the universe has other plans. Johnny's instantly transported into a fight with Kitana. She wins, but she spares his life, and you know Shao Kahn was pissed about it. Meanwhile, Kitana's actually been secretly spying for Raiden, and her bestie Jade catches her and basically goes, girl, you're being reckless. Pull it together. If I catch you again, I'll have to arrest you. Please don't do that to me. Jade's played by Tati Gabrielle, so I'm already here for Jade. There's also an amulet plot. This amulet absorbs powers. Team Outworld gets the amulet, of course. They strip Raiden's power and transfers his power and immortality to Shao Kahn. And of course, now Shao Kahn is super overpowered, and that's just not great for our team. So here's like a quick highlight reel so we can get through these fights, right? Okay, so the brawl between Liu Kang and the Revenant of Kung Lao, there's that word again, Revenant of Kung Lao, was the best. It was honestly the best sequence in the whole film. Powers, hand-to-hand combat, and a chakram hat, and the gut punch of Liu Kang ultimately having to take his cousin's life using his own hat. Beautiful and brutal. Meanwhile, Jax fights Jade, wins, and spares her life. Tell Kitana we're even, thanks. Cole fights Shao Kahn and lands what should have been a mortal blow. But you know, that darn amulet. Shao Kahn heals, kills Cole, poor guy. He was like the star of the last movie. Team Earthrealm, wow, I keep saying that like a toddler. Team Earthrealm goes to the Tarkatans, what Baraka is, to ask for an alliance and ask them to help them get into the palace. We find out that that species is used as servants. Problematic. Well, problematic. Johnny's challenged by Baraka, wins, and instantly becomes Baraka's new hero. Baraka is honestly a delight. We see him again in the closing scene, hanging on Johnny's every word. Baraka gets them to the secret entrance of the palace and pieces out. And while trying to get into the castle, Kitana is captured by Jade, of course, and Shao Kahn has Kitana chained up into the public square. Team Earthrealm goes after the amulet, but Jax is killed by Shao Kahn. Liu and Sonya are teleported away to the next round. Kano decides that he is done with villainy. Not for noble reasons, of course, but just because he misses the comfort of Earthrealm. So he decides to tip off our team, our core MK team, that Bihan, Sub-Zero, is in Outworld with the amulet. They need to destroy it, but they need to recruit help. Raiden burns the last of his powers to get Johnny and Kano to the Nether Realm so they can find help. And at this point, a lot is happening. So they're getting transported off. Shao Kahn fatally wounds Liu Kang. And then Liu ascends in fire, and in my mind he goes, "See you in the next movie." Sonya returns, fights Shao Kahn, frees Kitana before she passes out because that fight did not go well for Sonya. Kitana, now free, switches sides and begins making Shao Kahn regret every decision he's made since he entered her kingdom. Back in the Netherrealm, Johnny and Kano convince the spirit of Hanzo Hasashi, Scorpion from the last movie, to take on Bihan. All Kano had to say was, Bihan is alive, and Hanzo was ready to throw hands. It was a very Wanda and Multiverse of Madness kind of way where, you know, when she like peeled the illusion away that they were in this grove of trees and flowers and they were in some hell-looking dimension. Think that. And they were actually in a hell dimension in this movie. So then they make their way back to Outworld. How they got there, I do not remember. Someone please let me know, because I completely forgot. They run into Jade while they're looking for Bihan, and Johnny convinces her to switch sides. The three take on Sub-Zero, and it's honestly the next best fight sequence in the film. During this, they destroy the amulet with Jade's staff that turns out to be Jade, and Johnny unlocks a shadow kick. Bihan is finished. The amulet's destruction restored Raiden's power, and as his powers are returning, we see Shang Tsung trying to sneak in to kill him during all this chaos, because of course he did. Shang Tsung is a hot mess and didn't get a lot to do in this movie, but he got his ass fried because Raiden was like, Team Earthrealm wins, and in the post-credit scene, we see Johnny, Sonya, Raiden, Kitana, Jade, Kano, and Baraka prepare to use the captured Quan Chi to revive the fallen champions, and I'll be in theater opening weekend for that. What's interesting, I'm like, are they gonna come back like themselves? Kano only came back as himself because he was already garbage, so what are our friends gonna be like? I love me some Kano and Kitana. Kano was carrying comedy across 2 films, and throughout this entire movie, his comedy worked. Loved it, laughed at all of the scenes. And Kitana, I loved her for carrying the emotional weight of this movie, but honestly, Baraka had an honorable mention, and who would have thought that in the 2 scenes he was in, he was the scene stealer, arguably 3, maybe. But overall, I had a genuinely great time. It's a sequel, but it feels like a different movie from the first one, honestly, altogether. The first film tried something new with Cole and Scorpion's story. This one leaned into the game's DNA pretty hard, right down to the floating lanterns that extinguished each time Earthrealm lost a fighter. But I will be back for MK3, and I'm wondering if Lou's story is going to mimic that of the new game, God of Fire. So here's where I am. 3 movies, 3 very different experiences. Lee Cronin's The Mummy, see it. It surprised me, and I'm still thinking about it, honestly. I recently saw that it will be on digital soon, so I highly suggest you to get it. Stream it or add it to your physical media collection when available. Hokum. If a psychological folk horror with a slow build is your thing, it might land differently for you than it did for me. I respect the filmmaking. I just wanted more witch and jump scares. Is that too much to ask for? And as for Mortal Kombat 2, though that comedy just didn't work until it did, I had such a good time. And I wouldn't be mad at a Kano and Johnny Cage side story. It would be hilarious. Like, if I could see Johnny and Kano going through the Netherrealm to find Scorpion, give me that animated series. Drop your thoughts and comments, especially if you've seen Hokum and you loved it, because I genuinely want to understand what I missed. Like the video if this helped you decide what to watch. Subscribe if you want to see me back in these theater streets next week. Actually, you should come back soon because I'll be talking about I Love Boosters. And as always, go watch more movies. Bye.